What's wrong with their user interfaces? Well, the problem with them is really sort of in the bottom 40 there. It's this stuff right here. They all have these keyboards that are there whether you need them or not to be there. And they all have these control buttons that are fixed in plastic and are the same for every application. Well, every application wants a slightly different user interface, a slightly optimized set of buttons just for it. And what happens if you think of a great idea 6 months from now? You can't run around and add a button to these things. They're already shipped. So what do? It doesn't work because the buttons and the controls can't change. They can't change for each application, and they can't change down the road if you think of another great idea you want to add to this product. Well, how do you solve this? It turns out we have solved it. We solved it in computers 20 years ago. We solved it with a bitmap screen that could display anything we want, put any user interface up, and a pointing device. We solved it with the mouse, right? We solved this problem. So how are we going to take this to a mobile device? Well, what we're going to do is get rid of all these buttons and just make a giant screen. A giant screen. Now, how are we going to communicate this? We don't want to carry around a mouse, right? So what are we going to do? Oh, a stylus, right? We're going to use a stylus. No. No. Who wants a stylus? You have to get them and put them away and you lose them. Yuck. Nobody wants a stylus. So let's not use a stylus. We're going to use the best pointing device in the world. We're going to use a pointing device that we're all born with. We're born with 10 of them. We're going to use our fingers.
He wasn't a genius programmer. He didn't have a degree. He got fired from the company he built. And yet, he changed how billions live, speak, listen, and think. This is not just the story of Steve Jobs. It's a story of obsession, failure, and ultimate redemption. Steve was born in 1955 and was put up for adoption. His biological parents didn't raise him. Instead, he was raised by a working-class couple in California. From day one, Steve felt different. Not smarter, just different. He was a kid who asked too many questions, who challenged everything, who got into trouble, not because he was bad, but because he refused to accept things as they are. At 17, he went to Reed College. 6 months later, dropped out. Not because he wasn't smart, because he didn't want to waste his parents' money on things he didn't believe in. He started sleeping on floors, eating free meals at Hare Krishna temples, and took classes that had nothing to do with tech, like calligraphy. One day he'd say that class inspired the beauty of the Macintosh. 1976, a garage in Los Altos. He teamed up with Steve Wozniak, a quiet genius. Together, they built a computer and called it Apple. Everyone laughed. Computers were for nerds. Steve said, no, they're for people, for dreamers, for homes. He didn't build with wires, he built with vision. And the world started watching. By 30, Steve was a millionaire. By 31, he was fired. Apple's board kicked him out. He was angry, crushed, humiliated. But here's the twist. That failure, he later called it the best thing that ever happened. He founded Next, and it flopped. He bought a small animation studio called Pixar, just to stay busy. Pixar went on to release Toy Story and became the greatest animation company of all time. Then in 1997, Apple was dying. The company brought him back, and he turned it into the most valuable company on earth. Steve didn't create computers. He reimagined them. He made them human. The iPod put 1,000 songs in your pocket. The iPhone became an extension of your mind. The iPad replaced books, screens, even laptops. And he did it all with brutal honesty, artistic vision, and one obsession: make things people love. He was diagnosed with cancer in 2003. He kept working. He kept building. He kept creating. In 2011, he passed away. But not before he left behind a legacy that will outlive centuries. Steve once said, "Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life." He lived wildly, he failed publicly, and he created beautifully. That is how Steve Jobs thought different. Subscribe to RiseTales for more real stories of those who changed everything.